the second day of 2 weeks refresher course. Today we have a great privilege to have Professor D.K. Lobial sir with us. He received his PhD and MTech from Computer Science and Technology from Computer School of Computer Science, Computer and System Science, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi in 1996 and the 1991, and BTech from Lucknow University in the 1988. He is currently working as a professor in the School of Computer and System Science, JNU. His research interest includes mobile ad hoc networks, natural language processing, and neurocomputing. He has published papers in international journals and conferences, including IEEE, Wiley and Sons, Springer, InterScience, IGI, and ACTA Press. And he is a very good scholar and the research citation H-Index. Now, I heartily welcome you, sir, at Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management for this 2 weeks refresher course. Now I request sir to please take over the session and enlightening us upon the research methodologies. Sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Vishal. So there will be a break after 1 hour, or I have to continue for 2 hours? What is the
Sir,
process?
after 1 hour, we can do the question and answer round.
Okay.
For 5 to 10 minutes, we can take 2-3 questions, sir. After 1 hour, sir.
Okay. Anyway, let me begin now.
जी.
Okay. स्लाइड मुझे देखना है ऊपर इसमें भी थोड़ा बहुत मुझे ऊपर नीचे कहाँ से होंगी स्लाइड सीखना पड़ेगा ना
सर वो इस वही से कीबोर्ड से हो जाएगी सर. नेक्स्ट प्रीवियस जो नॉर्मल होता है हमारा
आ रहा ना. ठीक है.
हाँ जी, हो रही है सर.
हो रही, बस ठीक है.
जी जी.
Good morning, everybody, all the participants. It's a one-way difficult because the participants are from different streams like engineering, science, and management, if I'm correct. Therefore, it becomes more challenging to have a lecture on research methodology. Itself is a challenge in a sense. I'll tell why delivering a lecture on research methodology is challenging. But when it is a participants from diverse fields, then it becomes more challenging. Why it is so? So let me begin with you what I am going to discuss. Let me put it, the most of the views expressed in this lecture are my own views, and few things which I have taken from here and there. I have acknowledged that, and and not all of you may agree with me because there may be different opinions. As I said, there may not be a very common point of view what exactly research methodology should be for different disciplines, even within the sciences. So there may not be agreement. I don't mind, because that is what the whole idea of research is. We should have a difference of opinion on issues. Nevertheless, it may be helpful to some at least. That is what my idea of this lecture is, if not all. But yes, I acknowledge all those whose ideas I have taken in making these slides, directly, indirectly, because you always is influenced by some ideas probably which you do not know at times that you are reflecting them, and therefore you don't cite or you don't acknowledge. Or maybe this may be a common knowledge. Sometimes you don't know it is a common knowledge, or I am influenced by some idea. I may not cite it. So therefore, it is always better to have the acknowledgement to those whose ideas have been influenced or used before making these slides and presentation. Let me begin with this standard phrase which I put. Many people they don't have any doubts, but when you are a new researcher, you may have a doubt that the myth that research methodology includes methods to just मेरा chat box से कुछ दिख नहीं रहा है. Just 1 minute, इसको shift कर दूँ जरा. Yes.
इसको राइट कॉर्नर में कर लो, ज्यादा बेटर रहेगा.
मैंने ऊपर कर दिया. So that it will not come over the slides, है ना?
जी जी.
Only the methods of conducting research, but it is larger than that. So sometimes when you start, we don't understand what methodology is. Then you get confused with the methods at time. So that is a myth. Now, So the truth is that it includes almost all the aspects of research work. What you do is start from formulating a problem to the conduction of the research, making experiments, even analysis, writing of the thesis papers, publication. And not only that, I'll also put focus on there are certain community politics, research community politics, which I think very few people may be putting an emphasis or talking about. So I'll also cover that in this lecture. Now, the topics which I'm going to cover is now I'll begin slowly with a little background what I think of the preoccupied notion which a student enters to a university when he or she wants to follow research, and how as a teacher when we are in the field of research, how do we perceive at times. This is what my background will include. And then I'll discuss various stages and various aspects of research methodology. And this will also include how to write your PhD synopsis or research proposal, a broader idea. And then even paper writing is also an idea. Then we'll talk of, I'll include that how to present a paper, what I think about. And then reviewing is also an art. When somebody, you become a reviewer, reviewing of a paper is an art, because when sometimes when my student, when their paper is accepted, after that they keep on getting papers for review, and first time when they come to me, sir, how to review. So therefore I have this idea that let us have some discussion on how to review an article which has come from a journal for review to me. And another aspect is how to write grant proposals, because that is also really important. Now it is being more emphasized that you have to brought some projects, some grants. So the writing research proposals for grant is equally important. And then finally, I'll complete with, there is a research community, how a community reacts to various aspects. There is a politics as well, and there are other ethical issues which we must discuss with freely and frankly, not because to discourage. I like to encourage new researchers, but at the same time, being more pragmatic and knowing the realities of the system always gives an advantage to a researcher, rather than being in an utopia that you feel the word is very ideal and you start working. Probably that is not a pragmatic approach. There may be a difference of opinion that some people say, no, the young scientists or young researchers should not be talked about this because they should be. But I don't believe in personally that giving a gloomy picture all the time is not right. But you must be aware of the facts, what are the realities of the society, realities of the community, and then probably you can do much better if you know the realities. That is what my whole the research community and politics part will cover. Let us put in some, if I start with the background, this is the current trend, but this is based on what I see as a current trend in many places. And when I discuss, I come across young minds, when they come to do their PhD or looking for going for a PhD, then they discuss at times, they come, sir, we want to do have a seat or not, and this, that, things come. So from there, I picked this up, and therefore I said, let me put what a student view is and what a teacher's view and what a real view is. That is why I said in beginning, these are my opinions, my thoughts, which I put. See, I'm finding recently from mass many that when the student comes for a PhD, he comes with an idea that he'll come and a teacher will provide him a topic, and then he'll start working on, and gradually anywhere if he has a difficulty, and the teacher will come every time to help him out, and smoothly he will do his PhD and he'll go. This is what a normal concept is coming up. I'm not saying that they don't want to work hard, but the question what I'm saying is mostly they need that things are before you and you work within that and experimentation, whatever you have to conduct, but you have a very well settled plan provided by a supervisor and you'll work with that and then finish. This is one view. But at the same time, if you look from the teacher's perspective, many of us now start feeling that a student will come, will be a very bright student, and he will come and he'll search, go here and there, and I'll be least bothered about. He'll come with a topic, and then he'll start working, and he'll come with some ideas and do some research and publish, and we'll have joint super papers, and that will help me also as well as the student. Now, this may be, somebody may say they are too extreme end, but they are not extreme. Now I am finding this more common and common. That is what I put these slides here. So from both angles I put it, I am not biased either towards teachers or not towards students. But at the same time, the real view is it is a PhD or a research program or a research activity is a combined effort. If you look from teacher and taught relation, it is to be done combinedly by putting efforts by both parties together, and then you come out with a good research. Even if it is not a PhD program, those scientists who are working in the industry, if you have a boss who are your supervisors for that research project, the relationship go also there like that. The supervisor of the project will put some plan, I'll work within that, and I'll have a very smooth functioning. That is not true as well. There you have to also make combined effort together to come out with the good research. So, but nevertheless, I feel that as a teacher, as a supervisor, I have more responsibility to share ideas, to guide the student in a right way so that they can complete their research in a right time and in a right manner. That is most important. As a teacher, we have more responsibility. Now, but at the same time, people also come across and they say that how do I write my research proposal and what are the requirements? Now, let me put it very clearly that there is no single format where you say, okay, this is the way the research proposal must be written. There may be n number of ways, but there will definitely be certain common points which will be common across all the world, around the world, all every place. So, and this, and then every research area is different. If you are doing PhD in physics, is different, or doing research in physics is different than doing in chemistry, doing in computer science, and doing that matter for in social science. So every area of research is different. So there may be a different way of doing it. Therefore, we cannot have a very common research methodology. That is what I put this point. So the methodology of conducting research, publishing research, writing papers may vary from discipline to discipline or area to area. Here, the people are from engineering has a different approach, management may have a different approach, and science may have a different approach. It is because the different disciplines have different requirements. If you look at the social science research, may be focusing more on sample survey. You go in the field and collect data, come back, and then use certain statistical methods and then come out with your results. Whereas in science and engineering, we may be focusing more on experimentation in the laboratory, maybe sometimes experimentation outside the laboratory, but it is more of an experiment based which you have to conduct. And if you come, whether it is simulation, whether it is real experiment, all this may happen, but science and engineering disciplines focus more on lab. When you do all the lab, then it is a different game altogether. So that is what I am trying to focus here, that the requirements are different. And at the same time, the academic institutions may have a different requirement. Some say you should have a pre-PhD submission, some say you have this way, the synopsis has to be done. Some say that is different. Somebody said it is audible. It is audible? Hello?
Yes, it is audible.
Yeah,
Yes,
but somebody is written it is not audible.
Yes, sir. Audible.
Actually,
Okay.
there is some problem in that network, sir.
Yeah, that may happen. That is why I'm saying. So I want to make it very sure that I'm audible to most of them. But anyway, so the academic institutions may have different requirements. What is to be fulfilled before you acquire a degree? So there cannot be a very simple way of doing it. So, however, there are several key components which must be included by every research proposal. And in addition to that, there may be various varying special components varying from discipline to discipline, university to university system. That is how the area to area. That is what I will try to talk about. Now, if you look at the key component that what I was trying to say, every research problem should have some description. Any discipline you take, any area you take, it must have certain description. And there must be some justification argument why this problem is significant in that area. what is it is a current state of art or not. So this is very common across disciplines. And why this is important? Therefore, the review of literature is relevant to the problem, irrespective of regardless of the discipline you are in. Until unless you know that what has been done in the past cannot be taken as a new problem, because you will not understand whether this problem is a new or solved by somebody else, whether there's a publication possibility or not. You will never know until unless you have a good literature review in the area. And then you must also understand what are the proposed methodologies being followed in that discipline. So I know most about computer science, but I may not be knowing much about the science and management areas, how they follow. But if you know, but I know that there are certain protocols of making experimentation. If you go to the biology, there are certain protocols a student has to follow. How to make a culture, how to preserve it, how long it has to be done. There are certain set of protocols they have to follow, which probably may not be that important for a computer scientist. So the description of the methodology, how to conduct research, and then there is a different way of writing papers in different disciplines. Where do you focus on? So we must understand that there is some description of the proposed research methodology. It may also vary, but there is some common is there. That is what we must understand. Then, how my findings, important point is any area you do your research, whether you are doing in social science, doing in computer science, doing in this, but you must relate whatever research you are doing, it's finding that it must relate either to the area or to the society. It must have what is its impact. These are all common key points. Now, let me come to now the real. I am focusing more on the student rather than on the industry as a research. Let me put it this way. When we go, now the first time when a student comes for admission, and then he looks for a research topic. Now let me be, I did not make a slide for this. I find it is not good to make a slide, but let me put it very, very clearly. Then a student come with a grade home, and that is very natural and very obvious. Now let me be put very who the supervisor is, who should be the supervisor, what is the area he works in, and they assume that the teachers will always help them out. And therefore I put that there are different kind of supervisors. You should not have a gloomy picture in that. And then and based on that you must make your what you call hopes and so working style. But nevertheless, whatsoever, I'll come to that point towards end. I thought right now. But let me put when you come to selection of your topic, how to do that. There is no such method. Anybody can tell you this is the method you follow, and you will be able to select a topic. Let me put it very clearly. Like an example is, it is always better to tell you that I'll show you a child a shoe, and then tell him by tying the shoelace, by tying it, I'll show him and he will learn. Rather than I can tell you, okay, you pick up one corner of the tape, the lace, and other corner of, then cross it, and then do this. If I tell him theoretically doing that, probably he'll not learn that fast. It's always better to tie it and show him this is the way the shoelace has to be tied. So this is how mostly is important, and this is where the supervisor's role is very, very important. So now it also, there is no method as such, but there are few guidelines which I'll talk about. But at the same time, as far as topic selection is concerned, it also depends on your interest. The moment I say on your interest, many times we also keep on changing our interest depending on the availability of the supervisor in a university or in an institution. We go with some idea, then we talk to them. Yes, if your interest change, fine, but we must not. I'll tell very frankly that if my interest in the area A or topic A, I look for a university or a supervisor for that, but not for the sake of, but There are issues, I do agree that somebody already in the job probably may need to do PhD, maybe doing back hook and crook, but it takes you to nowhere at times because you are selecting a topic not by your interest, by the interest of your supervisor, with the view that supervisor will sail you through all the what you call water, but that is not possible all the time. Ultimately, you have to work hard. He can only give you certain guidance. So therefore, your interest matters most, and therefore you should look for your literature survey in that area. The moment I am saying this, now this is few things that everybody knows. I'm not talking anything new. You just read books, journals, conference, technical reports, workshop predicts, magazines. But the last point that all knows, I must go through it. But I'll make a small point here before I go on. The important point is generally I'm looking nowadays that should they try to read small conference papers. I'm not against conference. What I'm trying to say is conference papers are small papers, 6 to 8 pages, not elaborating on the research idea which the researcher has done. It gives basically a brief idea of the research. At the same time, it's not the complete research what he has done or she has done has published in the conference. That they leave it for the journal publications. But intermediate results or findings probably are published in a conference paper. Now, this is one the ideal situation is. But sometimes the conference papers are not maybe of that quality. But what I'm trying to say is, please keep in mind until unless you find a conference paper extraordinarily very good, don't make it a base paper for your research. You should always look for journal articles which are described in detail, and if you try to make them your base papers, probably you will end up with identifying a better problem in a right manner for your research problem. So in the beginning, I will not say that yes, for understanding sake, if you are reading a larger research paper, probably the conference paper are written simply and small and sweet. You can read them, but then further follow in the journal articles after that conference paper. And technical right reports at times help a lot. Many universities have a tradition. Whatever work they do, they publish in the form of technical reports in detail. If you read those technical reports, probably they may be helpful, more helpful than at times if you get it. Many of the universities they put on the web. If you get technical reports, may be helpful as well. But at the same time, what matters most is the supervisor's experience in the area. Now, why it is important is as a researcher, when a supervisor is working, he knows what is the current state of affairs in the area at a given point of time. Therefore, one may be able to take you that whether now this area is worth pursuing or not, because ultimately your research outcome has to be published in terms of research article. If it is an area which has already been thoroughly researched, the chances of publication reduces. Every new area you work on, you have a higher probability of publishing papers. And that is with what I'm saying is a new area, with if you put concepts over here and there and put it has a higher probability of publication. So now one, and second is probably many people have not published in the area. So look for an area which is not much research, number one. Plus, at the same time, the research area also depends on the availability of the resources as well as the research supervisor. That is what. But let us now, when you select a topic, this is what I suggest my student many times. Therefore, I have made a slide here. That with this internet, I'll put one thing. It's like a very tool which everybody keeps on sitting and downloading papers, and you download n number of papers at times. Ultimately, you don't find time to read them. This is one aspect of research purpose. And you have hundreds of papers you downloaded. Anything you see and you download, oh, this looks like matching my interest, okay, download it. But you never get time to read them. It's like somebody said, you go to Chandni Chowk to buy some item, you search throughout the day, but you don't find what you want to buy from Chandni Chowk. This is what people cut jokes around. But internet is like that. But what I am trying to say, yes, it's good to learn, but please download too many things. But how to curtail that? How to curtail that? This is what I tell my make the slides. You probably cannot read thousands of papers or hundreds of papers which you have downloaded. Everything you have downloaded, not bad. But how to read them, how to select them, and you have downloaded each and every paper assuming that it relates to the area of your interest. You have not downloaded anything which you feel is not related to your area. So therefore, while you are reading, you'll feel okay, it relates to my area, then what? Therefore, I suggest my student really, please at least read the abstract paper. The moment I am saying why abstract is important, when I learn how to write a research paper, then you'll find that abstract is very important. Then you'll have an idea.
हाँ, अब आ गई सर।
हाँ, ये इसमें पता क्रॉस ही दिखाता, थोड़ा आइडिया नहीं आ रहा, लाल था, अब समझ में आ गया।
जी
वो बीच में रिस्टार्ट हो गया मेरा लैपटॉप।
हाँ सर, वो कोई हो जाती है सर, वो आ जाता है ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम पे आ जाता है।
आया? स्क्रीन आ गई मेरी? हेलो?
आगे सर स्क्रीन आ
आ
गई।
गई? हाँ, तो शुरू करो.
जी सर जी प्लीज।
Okay. Sorry for the interruption. My PC got restarted, and all of a sudden, my laptop. Sorry. Now, what I was talking about is that if you download too much of material, then how to start. That is what I was talking about. So I suggest all the time, if you have downloaded hundreds, thousands of papers, probably you can't read all these. Just my student to read abstract, because it may also give you an idea what exactly the paper contains. And therefore, the writing of an abstract in a research article is very, very important, which I'll.
ठीक है सर। हाँ सर, वो अभी वेबिक्स इंस्टॉल करने की जरूरत नहीं है। जी सर। I request you to please wait for 5 minutes. There is some problem with the system. Sir is taking another system. Sir, it's connecting with other systems, so it will take 5 to 10 minutes. I request you to please cooperate.
होपफुली आप न करे, देखते हैं.
जी सर.
मैंने दूसरा लैपटॉप भी तैयार रखा, अगर होगा तो फिर उस पर शिफ्ट कर जाऊंगा मैं. पता नहीं, आज पहली बार हुआ, मैं इतने कई दिनों से यूज कर रहा हूँ. हो गया शेयर?
आ रहा है सर. Yes,
अरे
sir.
आवाज भी आ रही है?
आ गई सर.
ओके ओके, ठीक है. पता नहीं, होपफुली दिस टाइम इट विल रन.
हो जाता है सर,
पीसी
कई
को
बार आ जाता है.
रिस्टार्ट करता करता कलेक्टिंग सम इंफॉर्मेशन, सम एरर, पता नहीं क्या हो गया. But if it again it happens, then I'll start with the new laptop. Hopefully it will not happen now. Anyway, what I was talking about is, yes, why this abstract, how do I guide my student when they start with, I said, please read the abstract first, so that they understand what exactly the paper contains. And at times the conclusion is equally important, because it talks about the important findings of the research, what has been presented in the paper. And some research articles also write of their future direction, not all. So therefore, this could be important. And if you can get something, at least you can minimize and track down and localize which paper to be further read or not, or which to be dropped. This is what I guide my student and talk to them. And based on that, one label of screening, this only results into one label of screening, that which papers are to be further read and which are to be dropped. And then that means we have already reduced a large number of papers to a small one. Then you try to read the entire papers, only 2 papers. Probably there cannot be a number which can be specified, but as much as you can read as a part of your literature survey will definitely help you to identify your problem. Now, I always tell my student how it is to be done. I said, okay, make a chart, and this chart must contain that this is the paper, this is what its summary is. When it talks of the research issues, this is what the what you call its contribution of this paper, and these are, in my opinion, seem to be the drawbacks of the paper, or which the paper does not discuss or just misses. So if you make a chart like this will always help you. Even not only that, when you write your thesis, this is the work which you have done now, will help you in writing of your thesis at the time of writing of your thesis, because you have a good literature survey chapter where you can say which papers you have gone through, what are their drawbacks, what are their advantages. So if you do it from the beginning in a systematic manner, and that will help you. Therefore, the research is a very systematic way of carrying out from problem identification to writing research papers and carrying out research is the whole spectrum. It's part of research methodology. So that is how the methodology is. And how do you follow? That is also it differs from discipline to discipline. This is the idea which I give my student to do. And then now, this is what, if you read any book on the research methodology, most of the books are written for social science research, where you see that, okay, they'll say you identify a problem, then you collect data that may be based on survey, or scientific and the engineering student mostly will conduct experiment and then they will obtain data. Now that data has to be analyzed and then you must interpret some value from there. Whereas the social science and other discipline, probably maybe management, they will go in the field and survey some data. Based on that data, they will analyze that data and then probably interpret that data. And the question is, the moment you collect data, whether you collect experimentally, you collect through survey, that data has to be processed. The moment I say processed, those who are working in machine learning, probably from computer science, you know that the data has to be clean. There may be noise. Therefore, that may affect your results much. So there you have to clean the data, you have to bring it to the proper format, and a lot of things are to be done. That is what I am focusing on, what data processing means. Then yes, tabulate the data. That means whatever is important, that probably if you need to tabulate, you tabulate. Not all the time you need to tabulate, but if it is required, you have to do. Then you have to analyze your data. The moment I am saying analyze your data, that is what I am referring to is that the data which is presented along with you, that you have to have some relationship between knowns and unknowns, right? What that data relates with the unknown variables. Now, I am saying that, okay, in this area, if I put a social science example, you may be looking at the education level based on the income of a society. If you look at that, then you say, okay, this income group has this much education, this group income group, this is simple analysis. But what is its impact? What does it signify? If you relate that with the society, then probably that is what the true interpretation of data is. Okay, yes, because of this income group, the people are not able to take education, therefore this is what is to be done. That is how the moment when you try to signify the importance of your results with the society or with the area, that is what the real interpretation means. And many times when you read a paper, now I am seeing this more with the student, what they write is they draw a graph, make a graph of the data. Okay, this is my x-axis, this is my y-axis, and you have a lot of data. Say, okay, this increases in the y-axis, x-axis, therefore this increases in the. This is very much seen in the graph itself, even if you do not write. As a researcher, I can see the graph and find that, okay, if the values are increasing in the x-axis, what is happening on the y-axis, whether decrement, whether increment, linear, non-linear, it is visible from the graph itself. That is what you are describing. I'm not saying you don't describe. That is, description is equally important. But the question is, that is not the analysis you have done. The analysis means why this is happening in the graph. The justification for a trend in the graph is the real analysis. If, say, for example, if I give an example of a computer network, if my number of nodes are increasing, probably my throughput is decreasing or increasing, whatever it is. Now, if it is increasing, I can say, okay, when number of nodes are 100, then 150, then 200, my throughput has become from this to this. This is visible in the graph. But what does it signify? That means if I give a justification for that, I say, okay, when the number of nodes are increasing and my throughput decreasing or increasing, say, I can go both ways. If you say increasing, probably my interpretation is large number of nodes in a given area increases the node density. Therefore, the connectivity is more. Therefore, the data is being transmitted quickly. That is what and therefore my throughput is increasing. So that is the justification given for the trend of a graph. Until unless you explain that, the regions and the justifications behind what results you are obtaining, it's not an analysis. It is simply a descriptive research. So you have to understand what is a descriptive research, what is an analytical research. Yes, social science, basically people do descriptive research. If somebody is going for a research, they will go and a scene, and then they will describe a scene, what happened there. That may be their own research, and somebody has first time gone to that area and he has collected some data, he's describing that. That is a descriptive research. But as far as scientific research is concerned, the
Hello?
description does not, you have must have an analytical,
Hello?
what you call, value added to it. So this is how the, and second is, if you said that the number of nodes are increasing because my connectivity is increasing, therefore my throughput is increasing, if you put that, or if the throughput is decreasing, you can say, okay, node density has increased, therefore my collisions, more collisions, and therefore throughput is decreasing. This can be a justification, but at the same time, what does it mean now? What is the interpretation you are taking out of it? This is the analysis of the data, but how do you suggest to a person or a organization which are going to implement their network? That means you must suggest some way that what is, how much density you must put so that its throughput in the network remains good. If you suggest some way, that means, and relate with the real world. If you have taken data from the real world, you can suggest, oh no, your density has increased this much, you decrease this much so that your throughput will be better. That is where the significance you're attaching to your analysis. Therefore, that is a better interpretation of the data. If you do that, probably it is a complete research where you will find that you may be able to publish, and one, and second is, not only that, it's not about your saying, you must also justify this by certain mechanism and methods. That is equally important. Now then everybody will put his data and come out with some results, say my results are good. Who is going to believe that? I make my experiment and say, okay, my results is this. Now the question is how, what is the justification for that? We'll also talk little later. So therefore the research methods, the moment we say what method mean and what methodology, is a complete paradigm from formulation of research to research writing papers, proposals, grant, everything I put it. But when you do research, the methods only relates to conduction of the research. When you conduct research, what techniques we use for conduction of research are research methods. It does not talk of formulation of problem, it does not talk of writing. Or systematic sampling, random, all are random sampling, but systematic stratified, what kind of sampling it is. If that is a correct sampling, your results will be better. If sampling is not correctly, then your results will be with error, lot of error. Similarly, when you make experiments in the laboratory, what methods you have followed to conduct an experiment? So there are certain methods you have to follow. Biology has certain way of conducting experiment. Computer science, in different disciplines, may have different ways to make experiments. So they have follow certain methods of experimenting. One. Second is, when you get data out of these methods or collect that data, now the basic idea is we need certain methods where I can relate my known to unknown. Say for example, when you do regression analysis, say for example, oh, I use a regression method. Why do that? Because from n number of known variables, you may be trying to relate those with the unknown variables. That is the method of regression you use. You use a method for classification. What to do? You try to apply certain methods of classification where you are able to classify the data. And when you do machine learning, probably you try to optimize the parameters. You try to find out the value of the optimized parameters. And so in other disciplines as well. So the relationship of the knowns to unknown, when you try to establish that, you may use certain statistical methods or maybe some other methods, whatever mathematical models you are using, could be a way to have another kind of methods to use for conduction of your research. Then finally, how to evaluate your results. When you try to evaluate your results, you may also apply certain testing techniques so that somebody can say that it has a statistical significance, so your results are all right. Say for example, I make my experiment, I may get some data, you make similar experiment, you get some other value for the data, somebody else make an experiment, same experiment, but you may not get the same value. You may have a difference in the values, though the claim you claim. So now the question is, understand that whatever values I am getting, how much error I have in that, what is my confidence interval if you talk in terms of statics. I'll put that minus 5, it can be n, and it can be n minus 10. Minus 5. Now, if it based on applying certain methods, and if those values, whatever results I am getting, okay, 95% of the time my value falls within this interval. Okay, this is what I write as my justification for results. Somebody said, okay, my results come 9 times within this interval. Now the question is, I expect my confidence in 95%, you say my confidence is 90%. So now I can say, okay, 95 may be better, 90 may be lesser better, and therefore I can trust the results. And there are methods of evaluation where you can justify statistically your results. So what I'm trying to say, this is what 3 kinds of methods, like methods for conducting experiment, methods of relationship between nodes and nodes, and methods of evaluating the results. There are different methods available. If you use them, depending on the discipline, that is what research method means. It is only focusing on conduction of your research. Now, another question comes now, especially it may not basically what this science and engineering probably. These are the questions now. What kind of approach I should use? I should do simulation, I should do measurement, whether I should do some analytical approach. Now, the moment I am saying this, these are basically broader 3 kind of approaches which engineering does. Many of the well-established scientific disciplines may be going for measurement-based approaches, but not all the time these are possible. The moment I am saying approaches, what does analytical approach mean? In the analytical approaches, mostly we try to build up a mathematical model. Those engineering and science, even management people do that. They try to make a mathematical model by relating the variables of the problem with the unknowns and knowns, and you have some mathematical models, and then which you can solve with the help of a pen and pencil. The model is simple. That is what analytical approach means. I design certain equations to represent my problem. Mathematical equation, they may be differential equation, they may be any kind of equation. Then I can solve them. I have a solution available to solve them. I can sit pen and pencil, probably I can solve. That is what I try to do. Why? This approach is very simple in a sense. When you make a model of mathematics, what you take a lot of assumptions. अब बहुत सारी चीजों को assume कर लेते हैं कि this is like this. Then you try to build a model. Why assumptions? Because if there are n number of variables, अगर 100 variable हो जाए, if there are hundreds of variables, probably I cannot correlate them. So therefore, some variables I have to assume they will take this value. Therefore, I'll ignore them. So use the number of variables and simplify it and make a mathematical model, and so therefore it can be a solvable model. Now the question is, if the problem involves large number of variables, if I take certain assumption and reduce them, then my model will not reflect the true conditions of the problem. Now you say, then why do I do that? Next question, please. Why do I need to do that if it doesn't represent? Now the question is, These analytical models are useful at times when you try to find an insight into a problem. It will not be reflecting a real problem, but at least it will give you some insight into the real life problem. The moment I say real life problem, probably if you make a model for a bacteria infection, say for example, at least my model, if simplified model, can also say, okay, by increasing, decreasing these conditions, whether my infection is increasing, decreasing. At least it can say increasing, decreasing, but it cannot say how much it is increasing and decreasing. At least I'm able to find out insight into the problem that, okay, because of these conditions, the infection is increasing, because of these conditions, the infection is decreasing. Then I can go for a real life experiment. So at least it is giving an insight. So they are simplified, but you need good mathematician to do that. This is one way of doing it. And if not, the other approach is your simulation based approach, where you don't make such as a great mathematical model, but you make some small models and different models and then try to connect them and try to solve them numerically, because you cannot solve them with a pen and pencil. But you apply certain numerical techniques or computational techniques, write a computer program, and then try to solve that. And therefore, you can take lesser assumptions. You can, and therefore, it can be much little better model than the analytical model in the sense of relating with the real life problem. But still, simulation will not give you a real life scene. So still, it will give you better insight into the problem than the analytical approach. This is what I'm trying to say. Then the third technique comes measurement-based approach, where I can have instrument, I can go and measure the values and say my results. Like I can make an experiment in the physical lab, I can make an experiment in the chemistry lab, and I can go into the field geology. I can bring some data and then do my experimentation. So if you look at the experimentation will reflect the real life problems better if you look at three, but they have their own problems, and it's not that all the time you can use one. Now, therefore, the question comes, what do I select when I have selected my topic? Say, for example, now I have to conduct my research, whether I do simulation, whether I do analytical, whether I do measurement. This depends on many things. One, what is to be selected? Now, if you look, it depends on the
कर रहा हूँ वो एफडीपी में। हाँ मैं करता हूँ। हाँ हाँ प्लीज वेट, might be service changing the laptop. Hello, sir. Are you online, sir?
most important part is keep one thing in mind. When you send a paper to a journal, there are editor-in-chief, there are area editors. Like if you are sending a paper to a wireless journal, there will be editor-in-chief, there will be area editor, somebody is working area editor for routing, there may be editor for MAC layer issues, there will be area editor for what you call is location minimization. So different sub areas may have an editor in the, so the chief editor will send it to an area editor. And good journals, the area editor will do the scrutiny, and if you find that the paper is fit to be sent to the reviewer, he will send, otherwise he will return paper saying that, okay, we don't find the paper is good in scope, quality and scope is sufficient for fitting to our journals, but we encourage you to send in future also. This is a polite way of rejection. But keep in mind, what does the editor do? Do you feel the editor will read each and every paper thoroughly? I don't think so. Because if a journal is getting huge number of papers, the editor does not have time to go through each paper in time. So what he do? He'll read abstract, probably conclusion as well, and based on the reading of the abstract and maybe some just see through the other parts, you can make out whether it is worth to be recommended for the reviewers for review or not. So therefore, the abstract of a research paper is very, very important. How do you write it? So what it must reflect is, any editor will look at that, what is the nobility in your work? आपके काम में नया क्या है? What in the area other people have done? What new you have done? It's not that you make an experiment differently is a new. Somebody may apply gradient descent, you may have applied genetic algorithm, you may have applied something else that may impress much as reviewer at times. But yes, if a new area where nobody has done this, first time you are doing, they may find, okay, this good way. So we feel that, okay, we are using a new technique as a nobility in your work. It may not be, depending on the area. So what is the nobility you have done, and what are the important, significant features of your work? Main features, main part of the work which is quite new and different than others, that is novelty and salient features of the work must be reflected in the abstract. And in addition to that, you must also tell this is your contribution to the area by this such work. What you have contributed, your contribution, your nobility of the work must be in the abstract. Not that your abstract should be very long. You write, okay, wireless era has started from this. Doesn't matter for a research paper. You must not write history in the abstract. Abstract has to be small. Forget about history of the wireless or history of your discipline. You start with the problem, what you have done, what you are going to reflect or write in this paper, and maybe a little thing that this is what the drawbacks of the earlier researches are, and then this is what you are attempting. This is where the novelty comes, and by this doing this research, this is what you have contributed. And some critical results, or that means if something very important you have significant, you have find in your experimentation result, if you signify that also, write that in the abstract, it will definitely impress the area editor. You'll find, okay, there is something new, some contribution by the author, therefore let us give a chance to this work to be reviewed by the area expert, and therefore he will send it to the reviewer. So until unless you reflect those points in your abstract, no good journal editor is going to recommend it for review. Keep that in mind. Nobility, silent features, overall contribution, few critical results in the abstract. If you give that, that will definitely impress the area editor. Then of course you have introduction, and that introduction must also carry the motivation and driving factors of the area. Then the state of art must be there. You must reflect that it also include, not I am writing introduction, you may have a literature survey or area related. You must refer to the papers of the current year or a year before. If you don't do that, then they'll say that you are not up to date. So in your research, when you are writing a paper, in your related area and literature survey, it must reflect what is the current state of research in this area, and you may be referring to good papers in good journal which has been done. If you're writing paper in 2020, at least your reference should be up to 2019. That means you are an up-to-date researcher. You have really done a good survey of the area, and based on that, you are working in this area will definitely impress the reviewer as well. And then your main work must write the methodology you have followed, the way you have made experiment, then you may have done interpretation. Many times the reviewer puts an objection that, okay, your experiment looks shaky that how do you take this value, how do you get this value, how did you make an experiment, what is significant, how do you vary these variables. A lot of questions come. Like say for example, I'll give, hey, you write in your paper that okay, your so and so variable is randomly distributed, it is following normal distribution, and the variable when you write a program, you may use a random function. A random function in C or any language uses uniform distribution. If you're writing in the paper, your query follows normal distribution. If you use random function of a programming language, you are not making this variable a normal distributed variable, you are making a uniform. You must write that, and how do you make it? So this is few mistakes you make at times, and they're very taught by the reviewer at times, and they also doubt your results, and therefore justification for results. If anything which is coming, sometimes I see the graph come zigzag graphs, and we don't explain that why some peak is coming, then is going to the below at the minimal, then going up, then going down. Why this trend? You must have a proper explanation and justification for any such trend in the graphs. And now when you make graphs, when you make tables, sometimes the values are so close, they are not quietly visible in the graph. They overlap. It's better to make tables. When these values are very well visible in the graph, they don't overlap much. Probably you make graphs. That at least small things you must keep in mind. And the interpretation, of course. The conclusion is very important of a paper, where you write that these are the key observations and findings of your research. The moment I'm saying findings of your research, you must say that what I am saying is, what is the impact of this research? This is what I am looking towards. And anything by this experimentation you find new, that must be reported in the conclusion with certain critical discussions and analysis. The moment I say discussion means what? While you are making experiment, probably you find something very new. I'll tell you an experiment. When I was making a simulation experiment, I wrote a program where some rational numbers or real numbers or floating point numbers were used. And you won't believe, when I was making this experiment, and theoretically when I was working on the papers, it is coming that the condition should not be satisfied. If A equal to B was a condition, A has a value, B has a value, the A is equal to B should be false. That was theoretically coming. But when running a program, my program was finding A equal to B is correct, therefore the action was reversed. It was taking action which A equal to B, but by theory says A should not be equal to B, it should follow another action. And I was bothered for 15 days and could not trust the problem. The reason was, in the floating point number, at the 20th place of A and B, there is a difference in the value after 20th place after decimal, 19th decimal point A and B has same value, and 20th place onwards the value was differing. And theoretically I was not calculating up to 19th and 20th place, but computer will calculate. So I'll compute few values. Okay, I say okay, this is division by this is division by that, they will differ and there should be different. And it took me 15 days to understand this. So these are all intricacies when you write. And if you, what I'm trying to say is, if you make all these critical points, that what is the problems which occur in the simulation or even theoretical problems, could be part of discussions. Now this is what we talk about how to write. Now also the presentation is equally, when you go for presentation to various conferences, then we try to give the full idea. See, nobody there as an audience is going to listen to the deep ideas what you're talking about, because you are the one who did the research in the area deeply. The others may not be doing. They may not take that much interest, and therefore you must focus on your key important idea what you have, what is your significance, what are your result and findings. If you express within 10-20 minutes, 10-15 minutes, what is time you get, and if you go through the visuals which people understand easily, could be a better way of presentation in a conference for 10-15 minutes. You don't get more time there. Don't be too technical. See, what we try to do is we try to become too technical, try to explain our methods, how we set these variables, how we applied these methods, how we derive these equations. Nobody is going to take interest in those equations. Somebody interested can discuss, but make it as simple as possible. Now, this is how when papers, I said my student, when papers come for review, they talk about how to review. So as I said, you must see the contribution of the author, the nobility of the author, how he has made experiment, whether the results are validated or not, of course his presentation and language skills. This is how, when you review a paper, somebody sends you a review a paper, you must look on these aspects. And therefore, when you write a paper, you must also keep these things in mind. So the other reviewer will look at the same things. So that is what I am saying. This is useful for both as a author of a paper, as a reviewer of a paper. If you understand those things, you can do a great work. And I'm going quickly because of the time. Now, if you look at grant proposals, research funding, this is becoming very important, because more and more universities are looking for, even looking for project grants. Generally, grants, whether to go to DST or biotech or DBT, Department of Biotechnology, all these government sponsored agencies, even DRDO, they grant, research grant, they give in three areas: basic research, very and thrust area, and development. These are three larger spectrum areas where grants are available. Now, what does it mean? In the basic research, where you do probably some physicist or somebody may be doing a very basic fundamental research, not much grant is available. They'll give you some lakhs of rupees. You buy computer, you buy papers, you buy this, you travel, and so on and so forth. But difficult to carry out the research. Therefore, not much grant available in the basic. And thrust area, much grant is available in thrust area, because this thrust area depends on what is the focus of the society at given point of time, or what is the focus of the research which impacts the society. Like say, now you'll get a lot of funding for COVID-19 research now. COVID-19 is a burning problem which every researcher will like to solve, even in IoT, in computer science, even in other disciplines. So more funds will be available. Cyber security is another area. There are a lot of hackers hack your government's websites, even what you call your treasury, bank accounts. So this becomes more area where solutions are required. So more funding is there. Then comes developmental area, where grants may be available for their industrial collaboration may be required for such. You say, okay, some industry should be one of the participant in the research. Some international collaborations where you can develop some products. Like you may be making a biomedical tool. I may make a tool, small tool, which may check whether I have a malaria or not. Like IoT enabled agriculture, how I can make some sensors and measure the soil quality where it is right time to sow the seeds. These are all developmental areas. There is also good funding available. So larger funding is available on the thrust area, then on developmental area is also good area. If you're writing paper or writing proposals, you must focus on these two areas rather than basic. Now, how to write that proposal? This is not, it is aim, not emis, typographical error. Let me make it. You must write your aim of the project, and your objectives has to be very clearly specified. When I say that, I keep small difference between objectives and aims. Aim is a large target to be achieved, and objectives are sub targets, small targets. There will be many small targets to be achieved to achieve this larger target. So my objectives, or I say I have a larger goal. Within this larger goal, I have small sub goals which I achieve one by one to achieve that larger goal. So these sub goals can be put as an objective, whereas the larger goal should be as an aim. And then things should be clear. And then you must give the justification why this is very important. Research area. You have to think what is the societal impact of this research, and then you must make expenditure. Non-recurring means when you buy equipment, you have a staff, not a staff, equipment and some software where you need that. This is not a recur again. This is one-time grant which has recurring. This staff is not there. Remove this. Recurring grants involves which will recur again. You may be traveling. You may have a contingency grant. You may have buying papers, and all these will come under recurring grants. And then you must also, what is the expected outcome or output of your research? What are the milestones? What I'm saying, if you write milestones, if you write your objectives and sub goals, all these sub goals may become your milestones. Achievable targets are your milestones. So these objectives or sub goals may become your milestones which you achieve at certain stage. So if you write your objectives clearly, then you will also be able to write your milestones very clearly that, okay, this is the target I'll achieve after 1 year, this is the target I'll achieve after 2 years, this target I've achieved 3 years. So you have a 5-year plan, say, for example. And then you have to make schedule also, and that will help to make a schedule or a PERT chart or a Gantt chart that how much work you'll finish. Say, for example, first 6 months I'll buy my equipment, second 6 months I'll do this, third month I'll do this. All schedule has to be made. And then finally, keep one thing in mind. You must write related work that how much work done internationally in the area where you are writing the proposal for grant, how much work done nationally, internationally, everything has to be specified so that it will help a reviewer to review your proposal and then give you the. Now, this is what I said all about, but important part which I'll go very quickly is because of the time, I'll not take it's too long, but some time has been consumed in between while switching over to my laptop and this, that, and that is a problem. But let me put few things very clearly, quickly. I'm not going to discuss much, but there is research community and politics, which generally what I talk, many people can talk, but where you don't find much people talking about. There is a research community, and then there definitely will be a politics. For any community that matter, there's a politics, constructive, destructive, all kind of things take place. Now, let me put it very. So, what I'm talking to quickly is there is not a fairness in resource distribution. There's a politics of citation, who cites what, and there is a problem of using unethical means, where plagiarism, copyright violation, and we do not acknowledge if you use somebody else's PPT. But I know that there are career pressures and there are nepotism. Everything happens in. But let me put it. Nowadays, it is very important. Journals try to increase their citation. Okay, मेरे journal के कितने side impact factor. Editor try to enhance his or her impact factor by more citations. Reviewers try to enhance their citation or their impact factor. Okay, he'll say, okay, cite this paper. Editor will say, cite this paper. And the journal will say, okay, cite this paper. So therefore, everybody wants to maximize one's own profit. And of course, the individual authors will also try to increase or enhance their citation. Well, okay, you cite my paper, I'll cite your paper. So therefore, my index, H index is increasing, your H index is also increasing. So this is what all happens. And of course, general scientific impact factor matters. So this is what I call a citation politics. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back, whether it is relevant or not. Right? Sometimes you write a paper, a reviewer will send or an editor will send the review comments, say, okay, you cite these papers. There may be some of the reviewers, some of the editors, some of the journal itself. And you may be very well versed. Okay, I'll cite, how does it matter because my paper will get published? Yes. So the citation index politics is really a little worrisome. Yes, of course, there is networking for publication, networking for grant, networking for evaluation. But do not get discouraged. When I say publishing, okay, I am editor of X journal, I'll publish your paper in X, your editor of Y journal will paper my publish this. This also may happen. And even you add some names of editor and he'll help you to publish your paper. So you give him authorship or her authorship. So these are all also happening around the world. This is not that it is happening at large scale, but this is happening. You must be aware. So when you go for grant, and there, if you know people well connected, probably you may get grant at times, and otherwise you may not get at times. And therefore, even evaluation, who will evaluate? Any work can be evaluated. Anybody, it can be a good work may be rejected, even a bad work may be accepted. So it depends on how good you are connected. But this doesn't mean you must discourage with that. Good research always gets published. If you are doing a good work, this networking you don't require. It will help you all the time. But what I am trying to say is sometimes why I put this slide to tourism. Sometimes a student comes up, ये paper देखिए, look at this paper. It has published in this a great journal, but there is nothing. But we have said this, it has not been published. So they get discouraged. They say, okay, it is not like that all the time. I'm not claiming that their paper is work is great. It may not be because it depends on the evaluator's perspective. But at the same time, you never know because the author and the publisher or the editor may have a good relationship that is got published. So this happens, but it doesn't mean that you get discouraged. There is always a scope for good research to publish, always get published in a good research. If you are doing good research, 100% it will be published. You don't need to have a be networking, but yes, otherwise you may have to compromise at times. Yes, I'm not going too much on. You can read what is plagiarism is, but we try to violate at times. These are UGC guidelines you can read. I'm not going to talk much on that, but there are also a politics of scientific ethics. We do idea of somebody else, we don't cite it. That is unethical. We may at times to manipulate results. Sheet पे graph बना दिया without conducting experiment. It's not a fair means of it. You do not do proper simulation. You don't do experimentation deliberately or unintentionally, but you say that manipulate say good results are shown by this because who is going to check? Therefore, some authors or some journals are saying that before publishing your paper, your all experimental data should be collected at a repository made at one place, so that whether your claims are correct or not. I think it's a good idea so that your simulation results can be trusted. Otherwise, I'll make my simulation my own way. Of course, I can manipulate experiment to get results, and validation of the results are very important where scientific ethics are not being followed at times. There are ethical issues with the lecture. Say for example, if I'm using this lecture, whether if I am using somebody else's slide, whether I am giving a reference or not, whether I am mentioning it. Many times you download slides and deliver here without mentioning whose slides they are. It's taken from PPT. I use some material for the research I don't recognize. This is unethical. I take somebody's help, he contributes, but I don't give him authorship. I give authorship to somebody without doing anything. And lastly, I don't acknowledge even somebody has helped me a little bit in my research. It's very unethical. So acknowledging, giving authorship, recognize if you are using somebody else's material and PPT are very, very important, which is not happening right now. Yes, people are under pressure because of the changing policy of the promotion quickly. That is also one of the reasons for these kind of issues where people do quickly things to get their paper published. And second is yes, of course, the current scenario is even if you are doing a good work, does not guarantee promotion. It's also a concern people feel. Therefore, they are motivated towards. But still, I am sure that everybody gets promotion. It's not that somebody will not get. It happens. Hardly people are rejected, but everybody gets. So we should not be debating, discouraged because of these pressures. That is what I want to make a point. And publication pressure for career advancement. You have to publish in SCI. You have to publish in this. They come in between. We don't have our rules set in before. It comes in between. But this pressure is also making people to look for those kind of networking and other kind of issues. But I think we must sincerely work. That is what the whole idea is. There are individual nepotism, academia, and if you go for a project grant, there is a dominance by certain institutions. They will sit there as an expert and they will only give projects there. Therefore, I think these institutions make mechanism. These are for these institutions. Different kind of project maybe for different domains. Otherwise, some institutions will flourish and some will not get a chance even to get funds. That is also a problem. And towards the end, I'll conclude. I think the time is over. I am trying to rush and then finishing in time. I said by and large that the research topic is the individual choice, and it will also depends on the supervisor's guidance. And there is no well set defined methodology for disciplines. It varies from discipline to discipline. And good quality research always better. It helps and takes you long in the life and definitely helps you to get published in good journals. But focus on good quality. Sometimes students say, no, sir, एक बार PhD हो जाए ना research तो फिर कर लेंगे. They see that the research and PhD are different. We learn how to do research through PhD. Therefore, we must focus on doing good research while doing PhD. This is a good learning period. We are dedicated to that. Yes, my aim of highlighting this politics was to make you, for the sake of, and to make you aware and be more pragmatic, because we have all the time idealism when you are young. You feel that, okay, everything is great and he's a good, great researcher, she's a great researcher, and we are there, therefore we also become great. No idealism. You become great by working hard, not by the great supervision. Great supervision can only help you only to get better ideas, but ultimately your hard work pays. But one must not discourage and become ready for the pragmatic solutions of the problem. That is what I'll say. And at the end, I must acknowledge some of the materials. I have not picked up the slides directly. I made my own slides. I refer to the material. There's a book by Professor Rajan in 99, Arts of Computer System Problem and Evaluation. Something I have taken from there. And the Kothari, this is social science book for research methodology. I have taken help from there. So this I must acknowledge. That is why I put it here. And thank you for your patience towards the end. And thank you very much. Questions? Vishal?
Thank you so much, sir. It was a wonderful initiative for the researchers. I request to participants, if you have any query or any question, you ask to sir,
Yes,
and you will get the best answer from sir.
sir.
Well, sir. Good afternoon, sir. This is Francis, sir.
Okay, thank you. Nice talk.
Same here, sir. Thank you very much, sir. It was a wonderful presentation, sir. Sir, I have a quick question to you.
Okay.
And now, in this scenario where the central government has stopped funding to the UGC, the UGC has stopped all kinds of provision for research grants. So I had a minor project done, but applying for a major research project now they say that there is no funds. What is your take on this, sir?
True. Last few years, the research grant is shrinking, no doubt about that. It's not the now, maybe because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the funding may be a big problem, but the funding has been reducing for last many years from government agencies, and there is no doubt about that. And whatever small funding, I feel that I have been in few committees, I have seen that. That is why I put this slide of a nepotism deliberately, because there has been an institutional nepotism. Only few experts from certain institutions sit there and they grant, give the grant. But funding is concerned now, probably the government wants that more collaboration or the funding with the private agencies. Now with this COVID-19 pandemic, I don't know how private sectors will come in, because they are already run with sort of funding. Now for one more year, at least, I don't know, 1-2 years down the line, the funding will be a great crisis until less government has sufficient fund. And government is also focusing that there must be, the universities must generate their own resources, which may be difficult at times. I don't know where we are going to lead. Either international collaborations, I don't know how much it will support, but we must look for other options. That is what very much, maybe European Union projects or some other projects. But for 1-2 years, even that may be difficult as well. But I'm not sure what is the way out.
Dr. Amit, you have also one query.
Lobial sir, this is Dr. Amit Chopra from Guru Nanak Dev University. Sir, what I feel, because Now, after 2010, there is a rat race of journal publication because it is linked with the CAS career advancement
Yeah,
scheme. So,
that is
do
why I
you
put
feel that this scenario is good for the true education or for a true teacher?
no. If you look at, I put my last slide where I went quickly.
Yes,
I
sir.
put a career pressure on the career, right? So a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
researchers are pressure of career promotion, and because all of a sudden we have 2010 when guideline comes, it changes in 13, then changes in 16, then changes in 18. So
Yeah.
these guidelines of keeps on changing, and the researchers are not settled down, and they are very what you call there's a panic that all of a sudden new guideline comes. Okay, you have to publish these many papers.
Yeah.
This is not a good sign for a good research institute. One.
Even for sir, I feel that for teaching, because for ultimately our goal is to teach the students and
Yes,
to
that's
make
true.
them employable and to make them settle in life.
That
And
is very true.
ultimately, I have seen that we teacher are just going after publication and in a rat race. We sometimes the important point, that is students, they are
Yeah.
left behind.
See that it is greatly impacting our teaching in a sense. If you spend more time on publishing such kind of, you are reducing our time from teaching as well. This
Yes,
is
sir.
one. And second is, if you are not doing good quality research, that will also hamper our teaching, because universities are made that I'll do research and teach students new ideas.
Yeah.
So if we are not focusing on quality, definitely this will hamper our teaching in many ways. This is not a good sign.
Yes.
Whether then quantity, then quality is more important, and quality research does not come in a year or two. We should not put this guideline. Then this is what you call, okay, 3 years this should be done, and therefore you will be promoted. So we must have some kind of mechanism which also gives people what you call great avenues for promotion, even but not by these numbers. That means teaching should also be give a due importance as far as promotion is concerned.
Very right.
And other academic involvement of the teacher should also be a great contribution to the promotion. Then only teachers will be encouraged to do other things as well.
Yes.
So this is how the changes must be made. This is what I feel.
Thank you so much, sir. It's nice listening to your thoughts, sir.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you.
nice, mind-provoking, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can take one or two more query. If anyone would like to share or discuss, they can unmute.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
yeah.
This is Smola Roy from Delhi University. My question is to Joel sir. But before that, I must congratulate for him for a very nice lecture, sir.
Thank you.
But so my question is that you talked about some research approaches. Research.
Uh, uh,
One was lab-based approach, one was
yeah,
computational approach, one was analytical approach. But we see nowadays a good journal only accept those work where this combination of these things comes. I mean, like a lab-based research are always complemented with a computational work, and then it gets published in a very good research journal. But
yeah, true.
as you said, there are many constraints for that.
Yeah, yeah,
Students have less time to complete their research.
yeah, yeah,
Also, the lack of equipments in
yeah,
the lab. So
yeah,
we go for only
yeah,
a single approach.
yeah, yeah.
But then the point is that the paper is not get accepted in a good journal.
True,
So
true. I do
where?
agree.
Yeah, yeah.
See,
So that's what my question is. So how to balance these two?
now the two issues that I see. You said right now we have a hybrid approach as well, no doubt about that,
Yeah.
depending on the availability and time. Now, why I put this is, see, you are very right that until unless a good simulation result is also validated through my experimentation, and probably IEEE may not accept. I do agree with you that it is happening. It happens with all of us. Now
Yes. Yes.
the problem is lack of the resources. We cannot do many things. Now, what is to be done in these circumstances? Probably we may not be able to publish in A grade journal, but at least if you know what is to be done, at least you will be published in B grade journal.
Yeah. Right. Right.
See, this is how
Right.
I see. But right, or we must generate resources so that you can do it. So if
Right.
you look at what we are doing, I may not be publishing many papers in A grade because, as you said, I don't have lab-based approach many times. I don't have a well-established sensor network where I can conduct experiment. So mostly we have been doing simulation-based. A large number of journals we have published B-grade journals. What do I do?
Yeah, that's
So
true.
I must, so I must understand my limitations. That is what I was trying to focus on. Nothing else.
Okay. Thank you,
I
sir.
do agree with you, no doubt about it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us upon how to do the good research. And there is one more query, sir. Should we consider edited book for the publication? There is a one question from Dr. Richa.
No, I don't agree with this. I'll tell you very frank.
Ji.
Social science research people focus more on edited research. Scientific word generally doesn't, but it has both points plus and minus. Let me a little take some time.
Ji.
Edited books has a meaning at one time when that means an expert in the area who used to edit a book. That means he will have a good editorial page. He'll write his thought over the years what he has developed, and he will modify and edit all the papers which are presented in that book. That is what editing means. Then it used to have a good value because an area expert who has gained knowledge for years has done some editing. It might have improved the quality of the book. He has a good editorial page which gives a lot of visions about the area, how area evolved, what are new future research perspective in the area. That is what editorial means. Now it has, I not call it as edited volume now, sorry. I call it as assembled one now because what people do, you collect papers and bind in a book. It is really an edited book. It is not an edited, it is an assembled one. So
Ji.
compiled one. Let me put the compiled book and edited book has a different, whether you call it edited or not. To me, larger books which are being now called edited, they are compiled ones. And
Yes,
for
sir.
compiled ones, I don't find much contribution by the editors.
Ji.
So my opinion, such kind of approach, I am not in favor of edited books. But social sciences people really do some good edited books. Therefore, there must be some points for social sciences. This is what my take is, not
Ji.
for
Ji.
science.
Yes, sir. So I think there is no other. Dr. Satya, would you like to ask something? Your mic is unmute.
Sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Sir, good afternoon.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, please tell me where you are audible.
Good afternoon, sir. Thanks for the presentation. It was very nice. Sir, with regard to applying for research proposal in ICSSR, whether the institution should be accredited under NAC or NBA, sir, whether it is a must?
No, not yet. They don't ask for this in the proposal. But CSR, I don't have much idea because I'm not applied there. Generally, DSTN, they don't ask for whether your accreditation, they don't ask for. AICT asks for.
Thank you so much, sir, for electing us to do the good research. And it is a great pleasure to have you in the 2 weeks refresher course also after a long time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
You
sir.
for whatever little I know I shared. Thank you very much.
No, sir. Your little is your little is for us. It is a great thing, sir,
Thank you.
and it is helpful for us to do the good research in future.
Thank you.
And all the participants are giving their regards to you, sir, in the chat window.
Thank you, everybody.
Ji. Thank you so much, sir.
Shall I leave now?
Yes, sir. We are leaving, sir.
Okay, thank you.